Hi, it's Will from stormthecastle.com, and this is a tutorial on how to make a medieval tower. This right here. We're going to make this. And the important thing about this tower is that differs from the peasant's house that I made in a previous tutorial. You can see that if you look up peasant's house. Is that the roof is different. We've got a shingled roof here with balsa wood rather than the thatched roof. And we have this nice stonework wall. And in this tutorial I'll show you how to make that stonework and how to do that roof. And it's pretty simple. And you can use something like this in all kinds of different diorama tutorials and all kinds of different diorama projects. You can make walls out of it and bridges and anything that you need stonework for. So let's launch into the tutorial.
Okay, I've started out here by just laying out a slab of clay. Any kind of clay will work. I use Da Vinci clay. I like the texture and feel of it. And then I pressed a bunch of pebbles into it to make a stone wall look. So just fill it right up, put all kinds of pebbles in there, make the whole thing. I've got wood up square around the clay. You don't need it. See, there you go. Here's the completed thing with all the pebbles pressed into the clay. Now I'm going to seal it, and it's important that you seal it with some kind of a paint sealer. I bought that in an arts and crafts store. It's like, I don't know, $5. You have to seal it or else the latex rubber will stick to it. So now I'm applying latex to it. Just paint a thin coat of latex rubber right onto it. The stuff I'm using here is Mold Builder. You also can get latex rubber from a company called Wood and Scenics. It's just a mold building latex rubber. This first coat is nice and thin. Get it to really adhere down into all the cracks. Once that coat dries, you apply more coats to it, at least 4 or 5 coats, and you can start to get thicker with the coats. Let it dry between layers. That's important. You can use a hairdryer to speed up the drying process. Now if you want to make your mold really strong, use gauze or bandage like this. After 4 or 5 layers, press down some gauze and then paint more layers of latex paint on it. At least 2 or 3 more layers. That will make the mold nice and strong. Now we can start applying the layers nice and thick here. Those first couple of layers nice and thin, but now nice and thick to make the rubber mold really thick. So once it's completely dried, scrape it off your surface with some kind of a tool and take it apart. Here we go. Now if we didn't apply the sealant to the mold, to the model we made, the wall, we'd have a hard time removing it. And the clay would stick to the latex rubber. So gently remove that rubber mold, and there we go. You can see it. You can see it. It's a stone wall now. There we go. Now we can cast plaster into it, plaster of Paris. I just mixed up some plaster of Paris, and you pour it right in. Take your time pouring it. Get it to fill all the crevices. And while you're doing it, tap on the surface like this pretty hard. It brings up the bubbles out of the plaster. They will rise up. They won't have any bubbles in it. So once it dries, in about 2 hours you can take it apart, but 24 hours is a full cure. You can just gently take it apart. So you can see the wall. There's our stone wall there. It's looking good. I ended up making 4 or 5 of them, and you can use this rubber mold over and over again, many times. Now see how it's a slightly gray color? It isn't quite fully cured. It will turn pure white like that sheet of paper when it's fully cured. So let's paint it to look like a stone wall. I used white and antique white just to lay down a base coat on the whole thing, just like this. See, white, antique white. Now, of course, paint it any way you want to paint it, but I'll show you a nice technique here to get that stone wall look. You lay down your first layer of white. Now we're going to do something called a washing technique. This is black washing. You get really wet black paint, really wet, a lot of water, and you just dab it along like that. And right here it shows it really good. It seeps into the cracks. between the boulders, so it gives you good definition. It'll bring it out and it'll start to look like a stone wall. Then you do some highlight painting. See the high points of the various stones? I'm painting white on them. And that's it. That's how you do stone wall. Have fun with it. If you want to try different colors, like the pebbles I molded with different colors. You know, anything that fits into the color scheme of your diorama or the model you're making. So now you can measure it and cut it to whatever size you need. You can use any variety of tools, but be careful. It is prone to cracking. So you have to take your time cutting it. If it cracks, you can glue it back together. You won't even be able to tell that it was cracked. And you can use an exacto knife too. So I've cut it to my size that I want for the wall here. Just like this. And the timbers are going to go along the sides. So you have to consider that when you're cutting. See a timber here and a timber on the other end too. You know, the wooden beams for that typical medieval house building kind of look with the brown beams. So I glued it all down. I did a couple of different ones. I even cut one out, you can see here, for the door. It was difficult to cut the plaster, but I cut it for the door. Now I'm just applying more timber to the... Now we're going to finish off the tower, and then we'll move on to the roof, which is different from the peasant's house. That was a thatched roof. This is a shingled roof. So here I'm just showing you that I glue down all various pieces of balsa wood, and then I paint them to give that look. Now the roof is just 1/8-inch thick pieces of balsa wood that I cut in triangles to fit. And I use a hot glue gun to glue it down. So here we go. This is the last piece of the roof, the last quadrant. And I glue that right down with the hot glue gun. Now use a file or sandpaper to get all the edges nice. You want them to meld well. Now let's do the shingling. I use a ruler to score horizontal lines first in all 4 quadrants of the roof. Just to do a bunch of horizontal lines like this. You know, I spaced them out. I'm not sure what that is, about 1/4 of an inch. About the thickness of what I thought a shingle would be. So I go all the way down on all 4 sides like this. Then we move on to the vertical scoring of the shingles. Now we create the shingles like this and alternate them. The bottom shingles are offset from the next layer up, right in the middle, as if they're overlapping. And you have to score harder than you think you would, because when you paint it, you're going to lose some definition. So be liberal with the marks and the scrapes. You can use an exacto knife or any kind of a little sharp tool to really make those lines in the shingling. So of course you do that all the way around, and let's move on to painting now. Now I lay down a base coat of greyish silver. A red orange also works good, gives you that clay shingle look. But I'm going with a gray silver. Just a base coat. And we're going to use the same technique that we used for the stone wall as with the wet brushing, black with black. A black wash. So here we go with the wash. Watch what happens. The black settles into the cracks of the shingles. Brings out the good definition. And you can dab at it. If you have too much, you can dab at it with a paper towel. It takes the top off, but doesn't really get into the cracks, so the black stays in the cracks. And so there we go. We're just about done. So that's how to build a medieval tower. Both the brickwork and the shingled roof. Lots more stuff on my website at stormthecastle.com and here on my YouTube channel. And this is part of my Medieval Village project, and more on this project coming. I will actually do a whole diorama. There's the completed tower. Thanks for watching. Here's some more tutorials at the peasant's house on how to make a waterfall in the diorama.